Well, welcome back and Happy New Year, everybody. This is our very first Red Hot Talk of the year. Right, Rod? And welcome back and see.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Did you have a good Christmas and a New Year celebration?
It's very good, thank you. Very good. Yeah, as you can see, we've got a new house guest. So
hello there. Hello.
I'm hoping she doesn't cause too much disruption, but she's quite needy. So
oh, that's always good to have some other guests there than just us.
yeah. I'm going to ask her some stuff about photography later. I don't know whether she'll say anything useful.
Right, so we're gonna take it easy today. We're not gonna have anything I would say very specific, but of course we're gonna talk about some news, some new products, and also some rumors. So we're gonna have some fun today. So everybody, hopefully you guys already have some coffee ready, and I've made mine, and I can see the Rod is very busy.
Yeah, I have a cup of tea, but I think the dog's going to get it.
So, where shall we start? I mean, so we start about a little bit of the roundup of 2024. What do you think in general, and the feeling of camera developments from various brands, and do you think is a leap from 2023? Overall in general, we had quite a few cameras launched last year.
We did. I don't know. It seems to me like more of a period of consolidation. It's interesting what Panasonic has done. I think in that I've felt before that camera makers have often dropped product lines before they should have done, and It's interesting that Panasonic has started bringing back or relaunching some of its compact cameras, and the G97 is interesting too.
Speaking of G97, I know quite a few Panasonic or Lumix fanboys are a little bit disappointed because it feels like an old camera with just a very few minor update. For instance, the USB-C, and everyone that was touting it is merely just an update to satisfy the EU compliance, for the single port charging solution.
It possibly is, but I think the G95 before it, and then it is essentially the G95. I think that could have gone on for a lot longer, because I think a lot of camera developments are slowed down rather, and I think the G95 was still quite a good camera at a very good price. 20 megapixels, IBIS, good video features. So I'm kind of glad it's back. Though I know a lot of people would be expecting a bit more innovation, but it's a good camera.
Okay, that's
I'm
interesting.
getting one on Friday. Friday, fingers crossed.
So hopefully in a week or two we can hear some in-depth review from you then.
Yeah. Well, I reviewed the G95. I'm not really expecting my experience to be very much different, but we'll see. We'll see.
Right. Okay. That sounds very very interesting. And now speaking of I would say the Lumix. So point and shoot is another big thing, right?
Yeah. So I did review the FZ82D, which is the super zoom bridge camera for Tech Radar, and I found it pretty much as bad as I thought it was the first time around. I mean, it's got a huge zoom range, but with cameras like this, once you get past about halfway through the zoom range, it all starts to go to pieces, and it certainly does with this one. I haven't reviewed the ZS99. That's what it is in the States. TZ99 here. It's a decent little camera, but again, I think it's a tiny sensor, and they've gone for a big zoom figure, and it just doesn't deliver the quality. So
right.
But I'm not impressed by those.
We chat about this just before New Year. We said it seems like the point and shoot camera is making a comeback, and I've certainly witnessing it, and especially during the holiday seasons, the last couple of months, I was photographing in London. I was walking around. I was seeing a lot of tourists, who come from other countries, and they all, especially it's not being a sexist here, but a lot of girls, a lot of young girls, a lot of females were using point and shoot cameras. They are proper point and shoot. I'm not talking about some old stuff, but they are actually proper point and shoot that we used to see, back, I would say 10 years ago. And some of the Lumix cameras point and shoot, even Olympus point and shoots, some Canon point and shoots. It's interesting to see this come back.
I think it is. I mean, I suppose you or I might prefer more serious, better quality ones. I mean, I did come up with a little list of cameras I think ought to come back.
Right.
And a couple I think we've talked about before, but one in particular was the PowerShot G1X Mark III. Who remembers that?
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's kind of gradually faded away. Canon launched it with quite a fanfare and never did much with it.
Right.
But it's an APS-C camera with a zoom lens that you can put in the pocket. There aren't, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think I remember the PowerShot. I personally owned 2 PowerShots before the G5. Then also
G5's a good camera.
The G7, yeah, I love the G5. I mean, now thinking, obviously, technologically it's not great, but at the time it's a brilliant camera. It's got flippy screen, and it's got decent zoom, and the image quality was fairly good. It's not DSLR level, but it's actually very, very decent.
Yeah. I think the G5 is good, particularly for photography. It's just as current now as when it came out. So yeah, I'd like to see that back. Another thing that I think it would be good to have back would be the Lumix LX100 too.
Oh,
I mean the Deluxe 8 is nice, but it's expensive, and we all know really it's an LX100 too.
So I guess
I'd like to see that back.
Many Michael Four Third fans would love to have that back because it's got a 4 third sensors in it, and it's a very, very good camera, to be honest. I mean, given the size, it's a decent sized sensor. It's got a relatively good usable range of 24 to 70, roughly equivalent of zoom range.
It's got a fast lens as well.
It's got a bright 1.7 aperture, and it closes down to about 2.8, so it's still bright enough for the long end.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a great little camera, and it's a good second camera, backup camera, whatever you call it. It's a travel camera, so it's because of the tiny size. And it would be interesting to see if Lumix will finally bring back the LX100, in form of an update. I'm not entirely sure whether they would, because with the Deluxe 8 came out, and people are speculating whether Lumix is going to eventually launch the Mark III version of it. But if you look deeper into what the Deluxe 8 is, it's essentially the LX100 Mark II, kind of being refined and then refreshed and have a new interface and a more up-to-date menu systems, but internally the guts and everything is basically the same as the one before that. So I'm not entirely sure whether Lumix will do that, make a Mark III version. If they do it, that will be an interesting proposition, given the fact that if they catch on the current point and shoot vibe, the resurgence of point and shoot camera in 2025, they may have a little bit of market share there. Currently, if you're looking at like really new point and shoot cameras, there aren't many, to be honest, and most of the point and shoot is like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, and I'm just worried that Panasonic bring back the rubbish ones with the little sensors. But we'll see. The danger is, I think, that new buys are going to be accidentally buy one of these dreadful Amazon cameras. They're like,
the 8K 20 pound camera.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. Or even some,
I have one right here.
Kodak ones.
This guy cost me I can't remember, £49.
Yeah, you were robbed.
It claimed to have 50 megapixel and 4K 8K video capability. It's utter rubbish, this thing.
I know. Sorry, I've got a dog chewing my headphone cable at the moment. There we go.
So it'll be interesting. You will be interested to see if any of them do come back, and before we move on to more other things here, because my favorite point and shoot cameras in the last, let's say, 10 years, I could narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3 models that I really think is the best point and shoot you can buy, regardless of money. I'm not talking about like a price range here. If you can afford it, if money is no object, so here are my options. The RX100, the RX100 is definitely one of my favorite. The Mark 6 and I think Mark 5 and 6 is probably my favorite. 7 onward, they changed the zoom lens, which got a slightly slower lens.
I think they changed it with the 6.
Yeah,
so I think the 5 is the last one without 3 times zoom.
Yeah, so I prefer the brighter lens as always. So I prefer that option. And then the second model that I like as a point and shoot is the Olympus TG5. I know that they have TG6 and TG7, but they are essentially the same camera and same sensor camera, and same lenses. So if you don't mind, the TG5, I think it represents a lot of value for money. If you can still get hold of it, because it built the same standard as the newer model. It's got the same picture quality. You know, we can shoot RAW. It's rugged. It's drop proof, crush proof, and it's a proper action camera. I know you can get GoPros and things like that, but they're not really for photographers. If you're a photographer, want a rugged camera that can take a beating. I think the TG is always been, one of the best options there. So that is my second favorite. The third point and shoot that I really like, we kind of already mentioned it, is the LX100. And I opt for that instead of the GR. I think because of the flexibility of the zoom, and also it just got more features than the GR. I know GR slimmer, is maybe to some people is sexier looking, but I just prefer the LX100.
Well, I don't know. And I think the LX100 as well has that interesting multi-aspect sensor.
Yep.
So you can swap aspect ratios without losing too many megapixels. I know it's only 17 anyway, but you can shoot 1:1 or 16:9 or 3:2, and it's still quite close to that resolution.
Yep.
So that's quite interesting. And having a switch for it on the barrel, I like that.
And the aperture ring.
I know. Shutter speed and aperture, yeah.
Yeah, what more can you ask for as a photographer, right? So these are my 3 favorite in the last 10 years. I mean, I know there are newer models, there are other models coming along, and but having said that, the last 3, 4, 5 years, I didn't really see much of the developments in the point and shoot market, and Sony essentially killed off the RX100. Instead, they go for the vlogging market with the ZV series, and which is essentially RX100s, but basically retune and repackage into a vlogging camera.
it's basically the ZVs are like existing cameras but worse, because you don't get the EVF. So it's like the ZV E10, isn't it? It's basically an A6000 but without the EVF.
Yeah.
So
it's
the way Sony does this, unfortunately. But I think the only thing I've got against the LX100 excuse me a minute. Stop doing that. Not you, Jimmy. I'm talking to the dog. He's eating my cables.
Right. Okay. Just to ask the audience as well. I mean, ask the audience at the same time. And what would be your favorite point and shoot camera? And I would like to hear some models from you guys. And if you got any other experiences other than the one that we just mentioned, and they'll be quite keen to learn about them. You know what? For those who are keen to get some or want to sell some that you already have that you don't use, it's a good time to sell, because at the moment second-hand market is bubbling, and many of the point and shoot cameras is fetching much higher prices than, let's say, 18 months ago.
Well, they are, yeah. I mean, I still have a Fujifilm X30 that costs more an MPB than I paid for it new.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. Good time. It's a seller's market at the moment.
It is seller's market, and if you got some to sell.
You talk about the GR. Does anyone remember the Nikon Coolpix A?
Not really.
2013. So that's basically a GR3 with a 16 megapixel sensor, but the same principle, a fixed 28mm equivalent lens.
Yeah.
So I think Nikon dropped that a bit too soon. If they could fast forward that 10 years, they could have a rival to the GR3 now.
It's quite interesting, right? We talked about like many times different manufacturers. Now we're looking back, we can see a lot of the products were launching a little bit too quickly, or maybe like to the market
too early before their time would come. Yeah.
I mean, like it's for instance like the Olympus Air 01. You know, I don't know if anyone remember that the kind of like a modular system where they got micro four thirds sensor in a little package that you can hook onto a smartphone and then you shoot with the app.
All right.
And Sony did the same thing at the time. So they both had the same solution, but as we know that system was about 10 years old now. And at the time, Bluetooth or even Wi-Fi connections were not stable. Technologies weren't there. The bandwidth wasn't there. So it's very laggy. It just wasn't, good enough. The idea was good. I mean, I think if you, let's say, fast forward now to 2025 or even last year, 2024, we have Bluetooth 5.3, we have Wi-Fi 7, all of these stuff is much better, quicker, and more reliable than before. And with some of them can be instant connection. So I think if we have the same system now, it could be a very different story. It could actually be a very useful a tool for many photographers because you can shoot remotely. You can put the camera and the lens separately in a slightly different location and still viewing and controlling the camera in a totally different place.
I've never enjoyed controlling cameras over Wi-Fi. I've just been unlucky.
Right. Oh, we do have some chip in here. Chuck say that the Ricoh GXR. Do you remember GXR?
Yeah, I liked that. Very nicely made little system. I think they just confuse people by mixing the sensor sizes in the modules.
Yeah, but I think once again, I think that system was an idea, was a solution to people basically adjusting people's requests. Like we've been talking about why do we have to upgrade our camera if the camera body is fine? All it is either the shutter's going, or when it comes to future technology, you just swap out the sensor or the logic board, right? We that seems to be like a logical solution. You just simply swap out the gut, keep whatever it is that you're using. A GXR is basically the answer to that. Like you can have the body and you can just slot in different module because each module has its own sensor, has its own processor. and that essentially, that means every 2 or 3 years, if a higher resolution sensor came along or better processing came along, you can have a new one.
I think though that most people looked at it with the kind of glass half empty approach. They didn't see it as a way to continually upgrade the technology. They saw it as having to buy a new sensor every time they wanted a new lens. So that was the trouble with that. But I liked it a lot. But
I did, and I think at one point I really trying to get one. And I think in the second-hand market now, is fluctuating the price. I mean, last year I did see someone was selling the entire set of GXR, including all the modules, the EVF, all the accessory for about £1,000, which is actually not too bad when you think about it.
It's interesting.
But I also see some people now selling individual module, relatively expensive, especially those with the APS-C sensors or the Leica mount module, the A12. Those are commanding quite a bit of money at the moment. So I don't know, if you see some good deals, maybe it's a good investment because it seems to be like slowly becoming a cult classic.
Well, do you think that the digital camera market has become very conformist? And that people are starting to look for things that are different because cameras are now pretty much all the same.
I think so.
Do you think the makers have consolidated everything and everyone's now making basically the same thing for the same audience?
Well,
it's all become quite narrow, hasn't it?
We've talked about this, and I think that at least in the last 5-6 years, we don't see a camera that really stand out, that would say, oh, I've got to have that camera because it's different, because it offers something that nobody else has.
Yeah.
They all have fantastic AF. One may be slightly faster and accurate than the other, but overall, they are as good as you can get. No one can get a bad shot these days, to be honest. Given the same skill sets and the same lighting conditions, I don't think you can get one camera better than the other, to be quite honest. No matter how the marketing says, camera is camera. Under the capable hands, I think all cameras are pretty much equal, in the last 5 years.
They are. Nobody seems to want to design a new camera body either.
I'm Sonic.
Sorry. Yeah. Also, to a degree, Canon and others, they're all guilty, really. They're all guilty.
Yeah,
they are. And you might say Panasonic too, with the G9 Mark II.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of using the original G9 body, which would have been lovely.
Yeah, we've gone for the S5.
We've basically got the S5 body, which is, I think the kindest thing you can say about it is that it's functional. But it doesn't have a lot of charm, does it?
No, it's certainly not feeling as good as a photographer's tool than the original Mark I.
But nobody's. I think the camera makers don't want to spend money on new designs. They don't mind a new processor or a new sensor, but they're not going to spend any money on, on
Do you think in some way could it be a cost saving measure because they don't have to retool anything?
Definitely.
They just more or less the same guts and everything, so they reuse a lot of the components. They don't have to remeasure it, redo everything, reshape everything, just to fit a new model.
I think it's definitely that. I think they've all become very conservative. They don't want to take any risks, and the replacing the processor and sensor and the firmware is a lot cheaper than designing new physical products. And they are all the cameras we're using today are quite old designs, really. I can't think of one that isn't.
Apart from the retro bodies, because they are different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I suppose the Nikon ZF is new. That's a new angle on things.
And
I'm struggling to think of another.
The ZFC is also, completely new.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Outside of Nikon, I can't think of any others.
Yep.
Where the manufacturers have gone to the effort of retooling and redesigning the body.
I think what we just talked about, if they retool everything, and especially from the manufacturing point of view, it's going to be very expensive because the production line has to be readjusted for that particular model. I mean, like my parents used to work with a lot of different manufacturers, not in the camera industry, but other things. We know every time they retool something for a slightly different product, it's a costly exercise because they have to, the whole entire production line will have to make for that particular model, and all the screws and nuts and components has to change just specifically to assemble that particular product. So it's a very costly exercise. It's not an easy thing to do. So I can understand when the cost saving side of it, but also I think at the same time it is time maybe in 2025 we should see some new design and bodies and things like that because that's something that I would like to see.
So.
Yeah, let's hope so. Because I'm pretty sure that we're going to see something very exciting soon.
we need something to just reinvigorate the market, I think.
We do.
We do. So we'll see. I think the whole photographic industry has suffered since we went from film to digital because there are no consumables anymore. No. Manufacturers have to keep selling cameras. Because there's no film, there's no paper, there's no chemicals, and there's nothing else that people want.
Yeah, well, and also, after the initial transition periods when people were, giving up film photography and moving into digital, you got a bunch of people buying new cameras because of that. And now we come to the point that, okay, now everyone's got digital cameras. Most of us who know photography, who don't necessarily need to chase the latest and the greatest, usually use a camera that's 5-6 year old. If they don't break, it's perfectly fine for me. I don't need to get a new camera, for instance. there is no new sales. Like, there's no new photographer buying new cameras. It's only relying on existing photographers who's already had cameras to buy new stuff, which is a hard sell for them because unless you are the one who like to, a gear nerd, for instance, really like to find out, what the new processor can do, what the new sensors can do. If you're a photographer, we talked about this, anyone can pick up a 12-year-old camera and still shoot great pictures, which still stands. Everything I think that we talked about is completely valid. And not necessarily that saying the new cameras are any bad. They are great cameras. There are new features that are certainly beneficial to certain type of photographers, but majority, I'm saying majority of photographers are generous. They will shoot anything, from travel to kids' portraits to just basically going to parties and snapping here and there, to macro, literally everything you can think of, right? And many of us just having fun. So like a camera just for fun. And for those scenarios, I don't think a lot of these really extreme advanced features will be beneficial or, be useful for these type of photographers.
It's difficult, isn't it? I do feel at the moment the camera makers are selling features and improvements just to make users feel more confident or comfortable in their decision. They're not necessarily useful. People feel more confident buying an 8K video camera in case one day in the future they need 8K, but actually they're not using it. Go get my cable again.
Yeah.
But
I think chewing your cable.
It's because every time I'm talking to somebody, had this on a phone call yesterday, she thinks, well, this isn't right. I should be getting the attention. I'm going to be naughty. So what's the naughtiest thing I can think of? But you can't do that. So I let her out in the garden before we came upstairs. So it won't be that. But chewing cables is the next best thing.
Yeah. Okay, go on, sorry.
I was only going to say that I saw John Allen's ask question, how similar is the ZF to the Nikon ZF to the Z8? Not similar at all. Not similar at all.
Apart from the AF system.
But apart from the AF system. Different sensor, different bias in the way the features are chosen and built in. The ZF's very competent, very satisfying camera for photographers. The Z8 is more of a high-speed, high-tech hybrid. It's also got lots of resolution, but different thing.
Yeah,
but I think different. Nikon is perhaps the only company that's designing new camera bodies.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it pays off. A lot of the cameras are, especially in the last couple of years, seems to be selling quite well.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, the makers will start to realise that what people want is a camera sort of different or interesting or unique, not just more of the same. Not just more of the same.
Absolutely. And I got one comment here addressing to me. Barman basically asked me, why is there any reason I'm not looking into the camera? Well, it's only because my camera is actually in here and my screen is here. I'm trying to read your comment. That's why I'm always looking down on this angle here, just trying to read all of your comments here and then react to it. That's why I'm always looking one way instead of looking into the camera.
It's the problem I have as well. You have to have the camera slightly off axis. Half the time you're looking at the screen to see what people are saying and what Jimmy's saying, what I'm saying, but then you're not looking at the camera. So now and again you have to remember to look towards the camera. But fortunately, mine's quite close to the screen.
You see, like when I make my videos, I do look into the camera because I don't have to look at any comments.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
Right. Okay. Well, so enough of the Nikon thing, and but let's now look into 2025 because we kind of discussed about 2024. I think overall, just to summarize it, 2024 seems to be very interesting, but at the same time a little bit boring to me in the 2024 last year. There are new developments in the cameras, but at the same time it's just the same old thing, like it's another new model. They might bump up the resolution a little bit or maybe shoot a little bit faster, but it's nothing once again to say wow me. the year before that, we had the ZF, and it seems to be causing a bit of a buzz. That the X100, it's these kind of things that you kind of make us think, oh, okay, maybe it's something a little bit different. But then last year was a bit, feels a bit stale. We had the S9, we had the and all the other stuff. But yeah, I don't think they were interesting enough for me. Oh, maybe with the exception. The XM5.
The XM5,
The XM5, which I have it right here as well. And I have pimped it up already with a little half leather case. And it's a nice little thing, and with the this is the 27 2.8 pancake lens.
Oh, I see, right, yeah. How are you getting on with that?
It's a great little camera, and it's kind of replaced my RX100. Of course, it's a bit bigger, and but at the same time, it's got much bigger sensor, and it does much better video, even though it hasn't got IBIS. But it just generally a good little cam to have. But I wouldn't say that this would be my ultimate travel camera, because it's not weather sealed. So like if I know that I'm gonna travel, let's say for a week or two, if you travel for that long, you have to cater for all kinds of eventuality. If you want to go out and shoot, you're gonna have to expect rain or some kind of different weather patterns there. And for that, this won't be the camera for it. Even though the lens is weather sealed, but the body isn't. That means that I won't feel confident enough to have the camera with me all the time, right? So there will be something, hopefully this year, that will address my ultimate requirements or needs. And I know, being an OM guy, I have the OM5, which is weather seal, which is good. But I still think that the OM5 is lacking ever so slightly in certain area. For instance, it's not USB-C charging, so I can't top up the battery on the go if I'm traveling from one place to another. And also the it's USB, it's micro USB, and the OM5.
I've got some older power banks that will do micro USB.
Oh no, it does. But what I'm saying is because micro USB charging speed is relatively slow, and
I see.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just not the best system for me. And if I carry a charger, it needs a 3-pin plug, so it's not a USB-C charger either. I mean, you have to you can get a third-party charger for it, but it's just a bit clunky, so I'm hoping, the new year, we're going to have something that will basically change all that. Not only USB-C charging, we're going to see different solutions, different weather seal system that will enable me to continue my journey abroad. And then hopefully that's something that would excite everybody as well. I know many of you are going to ask me stuff, so just to a little bit disclaimer, and I do have NDA in place with OM Systems. If you want to ask me something, this may not be a good place to ask me.
I can explain the situation that Jimmy is in, because I've been in it lots of times. If you are not under an NDA, you can speculate all you like. If you are under an NDA, you cannot speculate at all, in case it sounds as if you're giving information. So I've been in a situation with Sony cameras, for example, where we know perfectly well what's coming. Then I have to sign an NDA because the launch is imminent, and suddenly I can't discuss it at all, because you can't separate what you think you know from what you actually do know, and you can end up in hot water. So as soon as you sign an NDA, you have to stop talking, basically.
So I should switch off right now. But all I can say is that we all read the same letters that the OM System CEO has sent out just last week, and we all read that. So I can talk about that because we all know the same thing, right? So there will be a new camera. There will be some new lenses coming, and I think they are very exciting to me. And hence, I made the video talking about that 2025 could be the year for Micro Four Thirds community to bounce back. We really got some interesting stuff coming from Lumix last year, even though I did say 2024 wasn't particularly exciting year. But the likes of GX7, I think, is a pretty decent camera. For those who like to make movies and videos, GX7 is definitely I would say if you are a Micro Four Third video guy, the GX7 is without a doubt one of the best you can buy.
I think as well. I wouldn't rule it out for stills photography. It's perfectly good stills camera too.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
It's not how it's marketed or perceived, but it's the perfect hybrid in that sense, because you've got the highest resolution MFT sensor and a camera that handles as well for stills photography as it does for video. So yeah. But the Olympus letter, did it mention outdoor photography? Did it imply something about weather season?
It did use the word outdoor, and so it's an indication that that follows on the main theme of thing for the last few years. So like they're going to cater for people who move about in the nature. So that can, basic equipment that can withstand elements. I think that's the message right in the letter there. So we should expect these new equipments to be weather sealed. That's for sure. But obviously expect them to be a camera or equipment that can be moved anywhere. So it's not going to be indoor equipment. It's not going to be something like the XM5 is not weather sealed. It's not going to be something like this. So I think it's going to be an interesting product lineup in the coming months,
which you can't talk about. It's an impossible situation to be in. I mean, I don't know what Jimmy knows. I haven't signed a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know anything about this. I only know what he said in a letter. And my feeling is that in the existing range, it might sound as if the OM5 does this. But I think people have been mildly disappointed by the switch from a metal body to a plastic covered one. Robust and weather sealed as the OM5 is, I think people would enjoy a more premium feel.
Yeah.
But I have no idea whether that has any relation to what system is going to launch.
That is very, of course, very understandable. From remember the original EM5 was metal built. The Mark 1 and the Mark 2 both were metal. Yeah. And when they go on to upgrade to the Mark 3, and that's the first transition from metal to plastic body. I've never had any negativity towards plastic bodies. I mean, in fact, I have a lot of cameras that are plastic, to be honest. One of my favorite SLRs of all time is the Canon EOS 3, and this is plastic. This is plastic, and it's considered as professional at the time. And right next to the EOS 1V, that is a fully metal magnesium body. But the EOS 3, it's got a magnesium chassis, but the outer layer is all polycarbonate, which means plastic. So I have no problem using plastic bodies. I've been using it for years and years and years. I never really have any problem. Even like I dropped a couple of times. Occasionally, you might have a crack, but a crack, is a crack. Same thing can damage the same thing on a metal body, either bend it or worse. You're going to damage something internal which you can't fix. So because don't forget that there is also pros and cons in different body composite. In a metal body, it may sound rugged, and it does feel a little bit more premium, has the weight to it. But at the same time, metal doesn't absorb bumps and knocks as well as plastic. So if depending on situation, sometimes plastic body may actually be better if you could knock the cameras around, and simply because the internals are fixed in the position by screws, and if something heavy knock on the camera, if it's a metal body, all that force is going to transition into the main components through all the screws and everything, all tightly packed together. So metal body may not necessarily be a good thing, depending on the force or the impact. So it is a give and take, really, and I don't think one or better than the other, but one certainly feels more premium and better. And for it's quite interesting, though. Now we talk about plastic and metal. Like many years ago, before mirrorless cameras came along, before Olympus, I think Olympus was one of those first companies who starting to use metal in the cameras extensively, because in the early days of the EP1, even the consumer level cameras was metal. The EPL series, the originals, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and they're all metal bodies. So even consumer cameras were metal bodies. And all of a sudden, when they moved from metal to plastic, people were screaming. But before Olympus, a lot of the DSLRs were plastic. Remember that? You know, like
there's that horrible late phase of DSLR of
Yep.
SLR design, film SLR design,
Yep.
where they were plastic fantastic for years.
Yeah.
Those plastic film SLRs. I know you don't mind your Canons, but I thought they felt terrible compared to the older ones, and to the DSLRs that replaced them.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's all a question of feel and perception. I think that if the OM5 had been metal and had more of a premium feel, even if it wasn't particularly practical,
Yeah.
there might have been less reaction to the loss of the Pen F. So, but we'll see. We'll see what comes, Jimmy.
We'll see what we
Yeah.
will see what's coming. And
Yeah.
all I can say is it's very exciting. And so just have to stay tuned for the official announcement. Because I think that OM System is working very hard for this launch, and then also for this coming year. I think it's a time to finally see what OM System is standing, and also what they are going to do in the upcoming, I would say, 12 to 18 months. So it's going to be very, very interesting year for them. And yeah, so I what about you guys? You know, like let us know about what your feeling towards the CEO's letter. You know, what you can make out of, and what sort of thing you're expecting OM System to launch. For instance, I'm not going to answer anything, but you can say what you want. I would like to see something that you may want to say. But in terms of Michael Four Third, and I think the general consensus now is that it feels like the development has more or less slowed down quite a bit in the last few years, despite Panasonic has sporadically introducing new models. Some are fantastic, like the GX7. Some not so much, like the G97. And then it's a little bit of a mixed bag there. But overall, I think any sort of development is better than no development at all. And as we can see, like Pentax, for instance, I'm not saying that it's bad, but then we haven't really seen anything new from them. So is Ricoh. They keep launching the new same product with a little bit of tweak to color schemes, and then a little bit of firmware updates, and then they call it a new camera.
Forwards, then they go backwards, then forwards, then backwards.
Yep.
So just briefly on Pentax, 10 years ago, they had an APS-C 24 megapixel sensor in a K70 with on-sensor phase detect AF for live view, and they've used it again in the Pentax KF, which is the K70 really. But why not in the flagship cameras? You know, the K3 Mark III, which is I think is inordinately expensive, does not have phase detect AF when Pentax already has that tech. It's hard to understand what Pentax is doing, but I don't want to upset any Pentax owners. I have, incidentally, did I say last time, I used the Pentax K3 monochrome.
Yeah.
That was all right. I remembered how nice Pentax DSLRs are to use.
But they have
Not
fantastic.
so sure about the lenses, but
they have fantastic ergonomic. I'll give them that. You know, like the DSLR's always been one of my favorites to hold. You know, even though I'm not really a Pentaxian. I'm not a Pentaxian.
Pentaxian.
And then, but I do have the K10D. That also have a couple of old SLR, film SLRs. I just find they are really good to hold. I just like using the camera body, not necessarily shoot professionally, because I don't have any lenses to go with it. But every time I handle one, I just say, "Oh, that feels good in the hand." It's a shame. It's a shame that they just don't have some lenses to match, and or developments to continue to push it.
Just jumping back to this idea that there's been no MFT development, I think you have to contrast that with other camera makers. Can you honestly say that other camera makers have been any better?
Actually, no.
When's the last time? Pardon? Sorry.
Actually, no. I said,
No. When is the last time we got an exciting new sensor? That would have been Sony with the A7 and R4. How long ago was that? Since how many other new sensors have we had from any other camera maker? you have to go back a long way. I think we're still all shooting with, on full frame, we're still all shooting with 24 megapixels until you start going way up the price range. There's not been a whole lot of development outside of MFT. So I think a lot of people are oversensitive to what's happening in the Micro Four Thirds arena, and they perhaps don't, because other camera makers are very good at self-promotion. Nobody notices that they haven't really,
or very good at repackage an existing product and name it a new product.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at all the fuss Sony has made over its AI processing, AI subject detection, and Canon 2. These are just incremental technologies, in my opinion. They're not shattering breakthroughs. So I think everyone is so sensitive to the pace of development in MFT because they're worried about the future of the format. But I think it's the same across all brands. Nothing much has happened for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Crew, the latest comment, just said about the Lumix did introduce the 25 megapixel, not the G9 Mark II. The first one is actually the GX6. The GX6 has a 25 megapixel sensor, just didn't have the face detection AF on. It was still the DFD, but in terms of megapixel wise, the GF6 was the first 25 megapixel camera. And I mean, I think new sensors is certainly very exciting. But again, I think unless we're going to see something dramatically different to what we are seeing right now, it's not going to excite a lot of us, you know, and it's still going to be the same CMOS technology. It's still going to be, you know, like it's going to be faster readout, you know, it's not going to be something that, ooh, that's different, you know, that it's almost like the next phase of digital evolution.
I think as well, I've been guilty of this in the past as well, saying, oh, is it about time OWN system had Panasonic's 25 megapixel sensor? Correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, that is not a stacked sensor.
No, it's not a stacked sensor. So
it's not.
The OWN
Whereas
system,
the sensor in the OWN1 is stacked.
The OWN1 Mark 1 and the Mark 2 both are stacked BSI sensor, and the Lumix 25 megapixel is a traditional LiveMOS sensor, which is CMOS technology. So it's not going to have the same speed readout, and you're not going to have blackout-free stuff, and you're going to have a little bit more rolling shutter if you use electronic mode, and so is in the video mode. Although being a Micro Four Thirds system, you're going to witness a lot less compared to bigger sensor like the APS-C and full frame anyway. So you're not going to see that much of a difference, but the difference is there. If you look and be really side by side between the OWN system stack sensor and the Lumix sensor, you will see the difference.
I think Panasonic's done well to get those video codecs and frame rates out of a non-stacked sensor. So I think that's a pretty good achievement. But if you were to put that sensor in an OWN system camera in a way, that would be a sidestep and not an upgrade, because you've got more resolution, but you haven't got the same readout speed. So I don't know. It's the other difficult thing is, and we've talked about this a lot, how much resolution you need. We all want more, but would we actually use it? Because all the stuff I use my MFT gear for ends up being downsampled for online use anyway.
I mean, I think it depends on, you know, whether you are the type of photographer who likes to crop images. You know, like, you know, if you crop a lot.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So for wildlife, photographing erratically moving animals, you never get them where you want them.
No.
So you probably do have to crop. I understand that. Yeah.
And so it's an interesting thing.
I found out that I did an article for amateur photographer on low light photography and high ISO images, and they used one of my shots on the cover, and it's from about 15 years ago, and I think it's an EOS 5D2. And I can't remember the resolution. It's not high.
It's 20. It was 23 megapixel, 24 megapixel.
Is it?
Yeah. I had the Mark II. Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't. It might have been the Mark 1. I will try and find out.
The Mark 1 is the Mark 1 16 megapixel. The Mark 1. Oh no, 12 megapixel. The Mark 1.
this
really
is what I'm trying to figure out. So
Yep.
so my point was that it was a really old shot at quite a low resolution, but technically it really didn't make any difference even when it was used on the cover. So yeah, I thought it's interesting that we always want more and more resolution
Yep.
from our micro four thirds cameras, but will we actually use it?
Use it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had the argument many times, and
I know too many. Too many.
And I remember the School of Photography YouTube channel, and they're not as active now, but they used to make a video. I remember comparing print sizes, and so they literally use I think at the time it was like a 36 megapixel DSLR compared to the Olympus EM1 at the time. I think it was a 16 megapixel file output, and they print an A3 print from a professional printer, and asked the printer guy to see which one is which. So he did shots in the identical place, identical settings. I think exposure, everything looks the same. And the guy printed out all these photos. I think there were about 4 or 5 different sets. They put them side by side. He can't tell the difference. He just say, I really can't. I can't really tell the difference. And it's the thing, right? Like I said, if you do need to enlarge the photos, if you need to crop a lot, I mean, high megapixel is certainly valid. So it's not that it hasn't got its use, but for majority of us, even if you do print them, if you just print normal size prints up to A3 size, like the modern digital camera with 18 to 20 megapixel camera is more than sufficient to do that job brilliantly. I don't think you have to worry about anything like that. And also, about viewing distance. Another thing that many people may not be aware, especially newer photographers. If you're looking at a canvas like 10 by 18, 20 by 15, you are not going to view it 6 inches from the print. You're going to step away about 6 feet to look at it. Like at that sort of distance, you are not going to see the difference whatsoever. Only until you walk up to it, then you can see, oh, okay, there is some detail difference there. But then again, depending on the printing materials, the printing paper, and the printing techniques, something can also change and alter the end results as well. So there are a lot of elements that is not being discussed, and also not being educated for a lot of photographers. They simply think that the higher the megapixel counts, the sharper the image. But sharpness is only one word. It's only one thing.
And sharpness is limited by what you're looking at the picture on. So if you can have more megapixels if you want, but you won't see them when the image is used in print or online, because the resolution is beyond the resolution limits of the medium. But looking at this, I think that shot they used was from the 5D Mark II, which is, I think, 20 megapixels, but they cropped it vertically.
Right.
So basically, it's the same resolution as a modern OM system camera, probably a bit worse for noise, but it wasn't a limitation. So, but it's a moot point. We all want more megapixels, of course we do. You can't help yourself, can you? Really? It's just how we are. It's just how we are.
Okay. And so another discussions is about third-party support, right? And we just talked about MFT a little bit. And I do notice there's a shift from third-party accessory companies, third-party lens manufacturers. They all literally have abandoned the MFT, even APS-C platform. And so they are slowly migrating towards the full-frame market. I don't know the exact reasons. I mean, obviously, because I believe they think that the full-frame market is alive and kicking and maybe selling really, really well. That's why they're gunning for the full-frame market. The likes of the traditional lens makers that we know of, like Laowa, Zero, Viltroxes, and all of them, they used to make MFT lenses, but these days they're all full-frame lenses. And it's interesting, maybe at some point they may actually come back and start making some MFT lenses, but I haven't seen anything new from them, let's say for the last 18-24 months now, with a couple of exceptions. Yongnuo, which is another Chinese company, still makes MFT lenses, new MFT lenses, so that's quite good to see them doing that. But all the other manufacturers now, really, really hard to see them making MFT.
It is. I think if you want to look at it from a positive point of view, the MFT lenses available from Panasonic and OM System are hard to improve on, really, and hard to undercut in price with any kind of quality. And third-party makers tend not to make zooms, but the zooms we've got from Panasonic and OM are actually quite good.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. I can see that it's a worrying sign, but I think the APS-C market is in a similar position. As you say, most of the manufacturers are moving to full frame. I think the third-party makers have realized that the camera makers now are using APS-C to draw people in before pushing them up to full frame. That's how it feels to me. So maybe the lens makers have figured that out too.
And also, I think another thing that people may not realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, is that MFT lenses are actually harder to make, and because of the pixel per inch resolutions there, to make a sharp MFT lens, optically you have to be really, really good. And
I couldn't say for sure, but what I have noticed is that you would have thought with the smaller format that diffraction would be more of a problem.
Yep.
I've not found it to be. So I know diffraction is a very complicated thing. My X-T5 started suffering badly from diffraction beyond about f8. But I can use my MFT cameras and OM System and Olympus Pro lenses at f11, and I think they look fine. You wouldn't want to go to f16 or f22.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think I don't know enough about how MFT lenses have to be made to answer that question.
Yeah.
But it's my feeling that the pro lenses are at least as good as pro lenses for other systems in terms of their consistency at different zoom settings across the frame and different apertures. Some people would say, oh, you can't go beyond f5.6 with or f8 with MFT because, and there's some maths behind it.
Yeah.
But in practice, I think it will depend on where the aperture mechanism is inside the lens. It's the size of the hole that makes the difference.
Yeah.
And if at different positions in the lens, that hole might be bigger or smaller, depending on the lens design. But the bottom line is, I don't think you can use maths to predict diffraction that easily.
No, but I think from my perspective, and when I say it's harder to make, is because first of all, the size of the lenses are significantly smaller. If you're thinking about a dedicated MFT lens, that means that everything that have to fit into that tiny size has to be miniature size, including the AF motors and everything like that. So bigger lenses, from a technical point of view, from a mechanical point of view, it's easier to design and fit components into bigger barrels than a smaller barrel. I think if we're being I think if we're being logical, if they were harder to make, they'd cost more. Yeah, there you go.
But they don't.
And also the I did use some really high grade full frame lenses adapted to Micro Four Third, and I've always realized that while they look really good on the full frame camera, as soon as I adapt to the Micro Four Third, it richly essentially crop into the image circle to look at the central portion of the image circle. If you look at it at 100%, it looks worse than the full frame cameras, and it looks softer. So like it, I don't know. It to me, it feels like Micro Four Third lenses. If you can achieve sharpness in Micro Four Third lens, if you blow it up into a full frame lens, it's gonna be like really, really high resolving lens.
You'll have to try that with you'd need one of those Metabones adapters, wouldn't you, to stretch it to a full frame sensor? I don't know. It's a moot point. It's very hard to make these. It's very hard to make these comparisons.
Yeah, of course.
I think generally camera makers won't go to the effort of making lenses sharper than they need to be.
Yep.
So older lenses tend not to be quite as sharp as newer ones because they've had to adapt the designs to allow for higher resolution sensors. But without there are too many manufacturing secrets involved for people on the outside to know how this works.
Of course. And Angela Play for one has an interesting point here. I mean, we just talked about the abandoning the MFT market, and Laowa, all the other brands that you mentioned in here, saying they focus on E mount, Z mount, L mount, and you know, RF mount obviously slightly different at the moment. They're still catching up on the RF mount because of the Canon saga, and but I think they are looking at sales charts, perhaps market shares. They thought, you know, they look at the general market, so E, Z, and L mounts, and of course Canon has, you know, basically taken like I don't know 80% of the market, you know, in general. So why bother, you know, going for the smaller market? But on the other hand, I think that for those who are trying to fight in this big arena, unless your product is really, really good and costs significantly less, people aren't going to be interested, because, you know, like people who buy into the photography market, you know, when they buy equipment, they're always trying to get the best they can afford, right? You know, and if they had the budget, they would go for the Nikon S lens, or even better, go for the top end professional range, same as the Sony. I mean, I would go for the G Master if I can afford it, and
if you can lift it.
Yeah, you can lift it, and all the other manufacturers now who are aiming to take a little bit of a market share from these lots here, unless they can match the performance, not 100%, even if you get to 80% of the performance of the G Master, then you have to sell it for half the price. If you can do that, then people might have a bit of an interest. Just like in the early days of Sigma, right? You know, it's the same thing.
I think they're probably selling a more complex proposition, aren't they? They're selling prime lenses with the speed that camera makers don't do, because, you know, it's too inconsistent with the quality. They're doing it on price, but they're also selling character.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of indie lens design, you might say, rather than mainstream.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see how well they do, but as far as we know, the last 24 months now, all these players that you mentioned in this comment here, they're all basically making full frame AF lenses. There are absolute tons of them, and I can tell you right now, there are more coming as well. So definitely no shortage of choices if you think about it.
You're gonna have to do a video a day, Jimmy. You're gonna have to do a video a day.
I'm already stopping some of them because there's just so many.
Yeah.
And the problem is, and you know, a lot of these lenses seems, I don't know, maybe coincident, but they all come at the same time with the same focal length, same aperture size, everything the same. And
is that interesting?
Isn't interesting, right? You know, and so I'm not going to speculate anything, but it just all come at the same time. So I just find out to be a little bit annoying, because if three companies ask me to review an 85mm f1.8 at the same time, I will only choose one. I can't review three of them the same lenses. You know, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if one tell me it's 50, the other ones tell me 35. Yeah, then I will have it.
Well, we know that Rokinons are Samyangs, and Samyangs are Rokinons, but Viltrox, I've forgotten, but Viltrox lenses have an uncanny similarity in specs and design to another set of lenses that escapes me for a moment. It will come back to me, but basically, I think you're right. We're seeing a lot of badge engineering on basically the same lens. You just with a different brand. But it is confusing, and I'd like to know how many of these they sell, because you would have thought the market would be saturated by now, but apparently not. All it needs is I think once all these manufacturers are very big on independent marketing and influencer marketing, they're probably all hoping that if they get enough people with big enough audiences that really spout off about how wonderful this lens is or that lens is, they'll hit a kind of critical mass, and they'll sell 100,000.
Yeah.
Possibly. But just out of interest, has anyone managed to buy an X106 yet? Fujifilm.
Ah. Oh yeah. Anyone has a Fujifilm X106? We would like to. We like to hear from you.
Still unavailable at B&H and Wex. Incredible.
No. I mean, I don't know how long they can last, or how many people are willing to wait for that long for a new camera. And well, it's not new anymore, right? It's almost a year old.
No, it's not. It's not. I think it'll get superseded maybe. So that was one of the rumors, wasn't it, for 2025? There might be another Fujifilm rangefinder style camera.
Yes, apparently there are some rumors about Fujifilm's upcoming product in the next summit, the X Summit. There's going to be two cameras that's currently heavily rumored, one of which is Fujifilm's SH1 Mark II or SX2, whatever they decide to call it. So they're basically the next generation SX series. And also a brand new GFX medium format camera with a body that style and function like the current X Pro series, which is a rangefinder style camera. That's interesting.
Well, I always thought the original GFX 50R, that was my favorite. That was the one with the rangefinder body.
Yeah,
I like that more than the 50S. So if that comes back, I'll be happy. I see Chuck L says that he hasn't got his X106 because B&H gave up. Sorry, Chuck, it's not funny. That's horrible. Sorry.
Oh dear me.
But yeah, so yeah, a bit more stuff from Fujifilm would be good to me. Fujifilm always drops the wrong or ditches the wrong camera. So there should have been an XE5. I thought the XE4, the little rangefinder one, was lovely, and the XE3. But
how many of you really like rangefinder style camera? Because we talked a little bit about all these different rangefinder style camera, the XE from Fujifilm, and then we have, of course, the GX series from Lumix, and also, of course, the Pen from Olympus. These seems to be all very, very popular in the days when they were here, and now they're not, and people want them, and then so I'm not entirely sure how many of you actually like the rangefinder style camera. I like them personally, but I don't dislike others either. I mean, I can use both SLR style bodies or the rangefinder body style. I mean, they all have the good usage. The rangefinder for me, in the good olden days, I like to put the rangefinder on my my right eye, and I have my left eye open so I can see what's coming into the frame. So for that kind of street moments shot that I want to see, having both eyes open, that means that you can anticipate anything that is coming to the frame and get yourself ready for it. That's always been one of those advantages of using rangefinders because you can have both eyes open. And that's also why there are a lot of people like to have a good magnification of the rangefinder. The original M3 was known for that because it's got really big magnification viewfinder, the 0.97, and also the Voigtlander rangefinder has almost 1:1, so that is actually good. So when you open both eyes, you're not going to have one smaller looking image and the other one looks like normal. So you're going to get that confusion in your head. So rangefinder is always going to be interesting to me personally, but SLRs is always been a staple mate for my photography. I mean, I've been since my early days of photography, it's always used SLR style, so I'm very proficient using both of them.
I like rangefinders and I have no idea why. I was looking at GMT Photography's comment, rangefinders feel smaller than SLRs without actually being smaller. That is true. I was not very moved by the Sony A7C when that came out.
Right, yeah.
Because I already had an A7R2, and I put them side by side, and I figured that all they did was chop off the pentaprism. I know it's not pentaprism, but you know what I mean. All they did was chop it off. It's not smaller at all. No. So here's the other question. Is an EVF on a rangefinder camera cheating? Does it have to be optical?
That's the big question, right? Because at the moment, I think only the X100 and X Pro has the ability to use optical finder. I wouldn't call it rangefinder because people always mistaken that the X100 and X Pros are rangefinders. They are not rangefinder. They're not rangefinders.
No.
Rangefinder use a mechanical connection between the actual window and the focusing patch to the lens itself.
Yeah.
So that is not a rangefinder. It's rangefinder style camera, but not a rangefinder. I
can tell you're a Leica user, Jimmy, getting quite steamed up about this. But you're quite right. A rangefinder is not simply a rectangular camera. It's a different principle. But we've got used to calling them rangefinders. I don't think we can do anything about it now. Rangefinder style. That's what we should call them.
If I can show you exactly what I mean is, so now I got a Leica here. So if I open it up, so I don't know if you guys can see this. So that little tab, that is mechanically connected to the actual rangefinder patch inside. So when you focus the lens, this will push in or out to move the actual prism inside. So when it's focused, the two, obviously like traditional SLR, the two lines will match, and that means it's in focus. So everything is mechanically linked together. So this is the proper rangefinder. All the modern days digital cameras now, none of them are rangefinders technically. They just have the style. They have the window. They have the optical window on one side, and so it makes it look like a rangefinder, but it isn't really a rangefinder. Rangefinder is actually a device or a features that allow you to focus with the lens.
Yeah. So we have the great Vancini. That is a heck of a username.
Oh.
Good point there. Rangefinder style cameras you can only use with your right eye.
Yeah.
But you can use SLR style with either eye. So that's a good point.
And Zoltan, wow, Nikon SP rangefinder. Oh my God, that is a good camera. But that is also a very expensive collector's item now. You see the price of the SP. Oh my God, that's expensive, the SP thing.
I bet you've got some though, Jimmy. You've got everything.
No, I can't afford the SP.
Next week.
For the price, I'd rather get another Leica, to be honest. And but it's a great camera. But the thing is, there aren't many Nikon rangefinder lenses out there, and they're also quite rare and expensive as well. So it really is for collectors these days. I don't think that if I'm going to shoot with it, it's going to be very hard. I mean, the M6 is literally. That's all I need, when it comes to film photography, if I want to shoot rangefinders, and I do have a bunch of M-mount lenses around, so it's much easier for me to use it. But the Nikon is another system, another mount, and is also very, very expensive.
So look, if we're going to talk about crazy retro ideas, I think I know what Fujifilm ought to do. It needs to come up with a square format, medium format sensor with a box design with top-down viewing through a hood and a big LCD screen to do it. So a bit like a twin lens reflex, but of course you don't need the top lens really. So more like a box,
more like a Hasselblad.
But with a proper screen that's actually 6 by 6 centimeters or whatever, and not a silly 3-inch screen. A proper screen that you can look at top down through a hood. Yeah, that's what I want.
I would like that too. I mean, that might cost an arm and leg though if it does come out.
Yeah, well, it will if we leave it a Hasselblad. Perhaps that'd be our second decision. But the Hasselblad 907X is very nearly there. It just needs a proper screen, a different style of display. But that's what I would like. Twin lens reflex. That would be wonderful.
If it come out, I would sell half my cameras just to get one.
It changes how you take pictures. It's hard to explain how it does. Yeah. But it does.
Any oldies out there that will resonate what we just said.
It's also a lot less intimidating for the subject. Yes. And it's quite a nice street camera design.
Yeah.
Because you're not putting a camera to your eye, aiming it at somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, the camera is pointing in their direction, but you're looking down on it. It's much less confrontational.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that would be really cool. And but I just can't wait to see what's coming out in 2025. That's for sure. We know that OM System is going to have some new stuff. We know that Fuji is not going to be left behind. They're going to have something coming out. Presumably, hopefully, they will fulfill all the X100 order by then. Hopefully, and
no, they'll just do it. It'll just be an X107.
Yeah, and you still can't get hold of the 6. That
would be really bad news if there was a 7 and B&H finally fulfilled your order for the one before.
That would be terrible. That would be terrible. That would be absolutely terrible. And also, obviously other rumors is Canon going to really finally jump into the retro wagon and then trying to release an AE1 equivalent in SLR terms. And we see Nikon's done it with the ZF. You just don't know. At the moment, the retro craze doesn't seem to have slowed at all. It seems to continuing. If there is a new retro camera come out, people are just going to jump on it. Even though the XM5 technically is not a retro styling camera, but it does have that rich retro vibe. And
it does.
And it seems to be selling really well at the moment, from what I understand. And there is a waiting list for it if you order directly from Fuji, apparently. And I do see quite a few people hanging around the neck now, the XM5. Maybe because they can't get hold of the X100, they all jump onto the XM5.
Probably. Well, it's the next best thing, isn't it? Next best thing.
Yeah. So you never know. But whether Canon's going to do something about it or not. Sony, on the other hand, they can't do anything about it because they just don't have the heritage to go back and to fall back on, even though they technically were Minolta before.
Well, can I just say RX1R?
Yeah.
I think. Do you think they tried and gave up and they'll never do it again? I mean, it's not really retro style, but retro principle, certainly.
Well, it's got a little pop-up rangefinder, just like the RX100. It's a full-frame version of the RX100, right? Essentially. It's got a really beautiful f35mm Zeiss f2 lens.
Yeah.
What? I would like to own one, but the second-hand prices on those cameras are also jumping up the roof as well, which is crazy.
I think it's because there were never really that many in circulation, I think.
No.
I think that's a part of it. But I don't know. Canon is such a conservative company, and if it does innovate, it always innovates into the future, not into the past. So I'm very dubious. Canon does come up with some very weird and wacky futuristic designs, but not so much backwards looking.
Speaking of wacky design, nothing can come close to this wacky thing, right?
That must be one of those new Dyson moustache dryers.
You know what? When it first came out, I thought I would just wear it like this, like a little Mickey Mouse hat.
Oh, that's nice. That's a strong look, Jimmy. That is a strong look.
Yeah. So it's interesting, that DJI would release something like this, and they have maybe when we just talked about manufacturers has not changed the design for many years. There you go. That's a good example of trying something new and brave.
Oh, DJI, yeah, for sure. I'm quite tempted by it, but we were talking a little before the show, and I think that might have the problem I have with my DJI Mini. Yeah, that it's all right with the wind behind it, but then you've got to get it back again afterwards. And that's where the trouble starts.
That's where the trouble starts. That's where the trouble.
Yeah.
But having said that, the Flip isn't designed to fly like a normal drone, although it's capable of doing it. It really is
like a selfie drone, that kind of thing.
It's a selfie drone. It's essentially autonomous drone. So it follows you, it do droney and circulating you. It's basically a follow drone. So it's not something that is designed for like very high altitude, like a photography or filmmaking tool. It's not like that. Although, like I said, it can do it, and but you said that as well because of the design, and also it's basically a level 5 drone. It's not going to sustain in high wind situations. So in the UK at least, we always have, our breeze to them it's a storm. So like, it just can't it just can't handle it.
so Jimmy and I were talking about this. I live in Western-super-Mare in the UK, which is on the Bristol Channel, has a prevailing westerly wind, which is typically around 20 miles an hour, but 40 miles an hour you'd say it was windy, and 60 miles an hour you'd say, oh yeah, a bit blowy out there, but 20 miles an hour is normal, and that's hard work for a small drone.
Absolutely. So I'm going to do a full review on these things. At the moment, from a testing point of view, I mean, I'm pretty impressed with the quality of the video that's coming out from it, given the price that it has. It's a really affordable drone for the quality it comes out. Certainly better than some of the similarly featured drones, in terms of selfie drones, and out on the market right now. There are not many. There are about 3, including DJI's own Neo, and also Hover Air's also selfie drones. Hover Air's new X Pro Max and the X Pro drones, and both of them image quality is not as good as the this DJI right here. So that's interesting to see. Even those actually cost a little bit more than that. So that's an interesting product, I think, coming out from DJI. And now, speaking of DJI, obviously now they own Hasselblad. There's also rumor saying DJI is going to eventually start their own cameras a division. So they're going to have a new DJI camera that's been rumored for some time. Whether it's going to come out or not, we don't know, because they're now venturing into a lot of photography and filmmaking sector now. And they even have their own Cine series that have basically a Cine camera with a full-on 2-axis gimbals on the actual huge body, really mainly gunning for the filmmakers who mount the camera system on the truck or on the car. So they're not really for day-to-day consumers. However, they are in that market, and that then doesn't really stop them from making an actual camera for photographer, since now they have Hasselblad. I know that's for high-end, but what about consumer levels? They might do something eventually, because we all know that the drone market is saturated. When I say saturated, they dominated it, but at the same time, drone laws are tightening everywhere around the world at the moment, so it's not as easy to fly drones as, let's say, 10 years ago now. So they know that one day, drone market is gonna slow down.
The market,
they're just not gonna sell as many.
I think there'll come a point where it's only professional drones that are left, the kind of drones that filmmakers would use and get proper filming permissions for. Because I should think most of the places you want to do selfies as a YouTube or an Instagrammer, they're going to have pretty strict drone laws. You can't go, the sort of place you want to put on Instagram is not somewhere they'll let you fly a drone. And so I think you're right. Drone laws are going to tighten up. I think the other problem is that even first generation drones and second generation drones were quite good. If you got one of those, you probably don't feel the need to replace it.
No, that's right. And I think, that's why I think DJI has been working really hard to diversify on the last 5 years. I mean, they're entering the action camera market. They're gunning into the Pocket 3. They're going into the vlogger market, but really doing much better job than Sony. And then, but also a proper filmmaking, the professional section of the filmmaking stuff. And of course, they already own Hasselblad, like I said. So the photography, high-end photography, the expensive, the photography side is covered. So now, if they really want to expand further, diversify further, a logical way is to enter the market with whatever they have now, which is the camera technologies.
Well, look at the Pocket 3. What a brilliant little thing that is. That was a bit of clever lateral thinking there. I don't know quite where they're going to go with Hasselblad. Unless somebody can correct me, I've got a feeling that the old H6 system is pretty much
dead.
Gone. Dead. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's only the X2D now, and any spin-offs from that. So I don't know quite where they might go. Do you think Hasselblad might do a Leica and badge some other camera makers' tech as Hasselblad's?
I'm not entirely sure at this moment in time, because DJI does have resources. They are a very big company now. They do the AF system quite well. It's evident by the drone and the Pocket 3. The AF system is on par, with the Sony system, to be honest. And it's just not in a camera sense because they don't have a camera that we can compare directly with. But from a video perspective, just judging by, the continuous AF, for instance, on the Pocket 3, I think it works as good as any other camera that I've seen so far. So I think they have the tech. They don't necessarily need to collaborate with another company if they want.
Right.
So if they want to, they really have all the capabilities and in-house power to launch a camera if they really want to.
Alternatively, maybe it could work the other way around, and a company like Sony could get into medium format by badging Hasselblad tech.
Oh, they did that, didn't they?
Well, there was very briefly. I think that's the other way around. That was Sony disguised as a Hasselblad. That's the other way around. I can't remember what they called it.
It was the RX100. I remember it was one of those cameras, right? And then they rebadged it into Hasselblad.
What I would say is that from the Leica experience, I think Hasselblad, like Leica, could turn existing tech into a much more appealing camera. Because if you compare something like the Leica SL3 mirrorless camera with, I think its probably closest relation is either Sony A7R5 or what would the other one be? One of the Panasonics. It's not really like the S1R because the sensor's different. But I think what Leica has done is taken existing tech, but made a much more appealing camera. The physically and in terms of the interface. And Leica's good at that. And I think probably Hasselblad's quite good at that as well. So that could be interesting. It could be interesting.
That was definitely interesting.
I've got a gadget. It's not as interesting as yours, though.
Oh, okay.
But if my dog will let me, I'll show you. I managed to get hold of one.
What is this?
It's a ShoulderPod. ShoulderPod G2.
What is a shoulder
So
pod?
it's a smartphone grip.
Right.
So you slot your smartphone in there.
Right.
You can use it horizontally. The phone comes out sideways.
Yeah.
Or just turn it to shoot vertically.
Right.
It's got a tripod socket on the base. Dog's very interested for some reason. And one on the end. So you can put it straight onto a tripod. And it's got 6 cold shoes. So you can put a phone. I can't show you because somebody's not helping me. But
interesting.
You can put a phone in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And there's somewhere to slot your radio mic receiver and your LED and so on.
Yeah, I know most of our listeners are not technically a smartphone photographer or smartphone filmmakers, even though we all have smartphones. But I think from what I see in the last, I would say as recent as the last 6 to 7 months, I see a lot of smartphone-related accessories that's come out, not for consumers, but for professionals. And I think there is a little shift there where now people are thinking that the smartphone may be good enough to do certain professionals' jobs. And certainly from Apple's perspective, they've been pushing that, right? All their keynotes now are filmed with iPhones in ProRes. And so we're now seeing a whole bunch of accessories like external USB-C storage that can magnetically attach to the phone, allowing you to store ProRes footage externally, not through the internal storage.
I think,
and there are cages and gimbals and everything that is tailored for professional use.
I think that's true because I think if you use your footage in a kind of broadcast situation where it's generally not, it's probably only going to be standard definition or full HD at best.
Yeah,
you're not likely to be shooting for 4K delivery. The quality is fine, but I think where they succeed is that the stabilization is on a different level to what you get from a larger camera. You can walk with the smartphone and get decent footage. You can't really do that with the mirrorless cameras. So I don't know. I do a lot of stuff filming on the phone. I've also got a colleague who shoots only on phones, and I feel that it's like any camera. If you use a phone as carefully as you'd use a camera, you're going to get much closer results. You just have to be realistic about the resolution and things like shutter angles. If you're offended by very short shutter angles, which makes the footage look quite bitty, then a smartphone is not for you.
No.
But if you don't notice that stuff too much, and if you're more interested in just getting stable, crisp, clear footage, they do a good job.
Yeah,
but
and I can see that this year is going to expand as well by the sound of it, because I already have a couple of products in my box that allows me to film a lot of different things with the smartphone, and you know, they are really aiming for the high-end level, not the normal consumers.
Well,
your dog's really hungry now, trying to chew your phone as well.
I know. I've got to give her a tea in a minute. Honestly, it's not helpful. Can I just suggest to people, if they are going to do kind of YouTube stuff, don't get a dog, or don't ask the dog to help you. So this thing, you just slide it in a clamp, and I'm trying to line it up with the camera.
Yeah.
You push it until it clicks, and that's a really firm grip. That's not going to come out. And so from here, you just do that. No, you don't. You do that for vertical video, or that for horizontal video. So there's no pivots or catches or anything, and you've got cold shoes on the top, on the sides, one there, and you've got the tripod sockets for putting it on a tripod. So, it's made by Shoulder Pod, and I think they're Spanish, and I couldn't buy one in the UK because the site doesn't ship to the UK, but I managed to find a retailer that sells them. It's about £65. It's not a lot, but it's interesting. And I think that it's not helping the camera market when you've got products like smartphones, which are almost as good for certain jobs and sometimes better.
Sure. So do you think, and obviously we talk about 2025 in this particular live stream today, do you think smartphone is continue, or will it continue to eat away the camera market? It's come to a point that slow down in recent years, because people have realized that smartphone is not all that.
I think we've reached an equilibrium. I think we've reached a balance, so that people who need... Sorry, just trying to stop the dog eating. Gracie, can you...
I can see chewing the cable.
Thank you. So I think we've reached a point where people who decided they need a smartphone use a smartphone. People who decide they need a camera, they get a camera. And I think the balance has been achieved now. So I don't think we're going to see any further shift. I think as well that smartphone camera development has got at least as bogged down as camera development. So despite all the shouting and all the noise and all the fuss about computational imaging and kind of 48 or 64 megapixel sensors and super resolution, it's all smoke and mirrors. You know, I think we're pretty much where we were.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is hard work. I'm not doing this again. She can stay downstairs.
Okay, well, in that case, just to summarize a little bit, and before we close it for today, overall, let's talk about what should we expect in 2025. I think obviously we are speculating here. You know, it's just January. It's the first month of the year. But one thing to start with is obviously OM System. They already announced they're going to have something coming, and that's exciting already for me at least, and I think for a lot of you.
Because you know loads of stuff you won't tell us. We get that.
Because we all happy bunch, and then so yes, so from an OM perspective, I'm really happy. I think that we're gonna see some exciting stuff coming, so I don't think that people will be disappointed. The Lumix really I don't know. I mean, they already had some new cameras came out last year. I think if they want to keep the existing fan base happy, they either have to launch another camera or a couple of lenses just to be sure they continue to have the activities there.
I hear talk of an S1R2,
right,
with 60 megapixels.
Ooh.
If that is the case, they would have to get that sensor from Sony, I would think. unless the 60 megapixel sensor being used by Leica is Leica's. So either way, a 60 megapixel S1R could happen.
Well, if it's from Leica, it's not going to be cheap. It's Leica, even though it's just a sensor.
I'm talking about just a sensor. We'll see.
Yeah. So that would be interesting though if that's happen. But now we talk about the full frame Lumix stuff. What do you think about the L-mount alliance at the moment? In terms of the overall development of it, it seems to kind of slow down a little bit.
I don't know. I think Sigma has done all the work. I think Leica makes its own lenses because nobody else's will be good enough for Leica. Panasonic's L-mount lenses, you say it's slowed down. I think they just got a lot out very quickly. So I think the L-mount lens choice is pretty good, but it's not a system for sports or wildlife really. It's more video hybrid system, I think. Thank you. Microphone cable. So yeah, I don't know. I think the L-mount's not doing that bad. I mean, Blackmagic has adopted it now for the 6K Pro, the latest version is L-mount.
Yeah.
So that's a modest step forward for the L-mount alliance.
Right.
It depends on how many Lumix S5 IIs they sell. I think in the long run, I mean, it's heavily discounted. They're trying to get a lot of them out there, and if they succeed, then I think the L-mount has got a pretty decent future.
Interesting. Now move on to Nikon.
Well, I don't know. I think Nikon has had a good couple of years. I don't know what else it can do really. I think the ZF is a bit of a minor triumph.
Yes.
I think the Z8 and Z9 have impressed everyone, not least because I think Sony helped with the A1 Mark II and made everyone realise how cheap the Nikons were. So, I think Nikon's had a good couple of years.
And the new Canon R1, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, Carnival, yeah. Now that the EOS R1 has come out, sales of the R3 have rocketed.
So there's going to be interesting, but I mean, now on to Nikon. We talked about this ZF has been a minor triumph for them in the last 12 to 13 months, but also I think it could be a time for an updated ZFC, even though I don't think there's no rumors or any speculation just yet. But however, ZFC has been around for a number of years now. It's about 4 years now, I think. And from a digital camera's point of view, is probably reaching the end of cycle. And I know recently they launched a bunch of different colorways that you can have different skin on it, so they look kind of trying to keep it fresh as possible. But I think that this year we may actually starting to hear some developments on the next generation of ZFC. And if they do, I think for me at the moment, the ZFC is good enough as a photographer's camera. But it would be good if they introduce IBIS on this camera. And I think that if they do that, this could become, one of the best APS-C cameras on the market. If
only they could put... I'm not convinced Nikon will ever make another APS-C sensor, apart from that 20 megapixel sensor. Also, it really does need IBIS, I think. I don't know where this dog is going. I'm terribly sorry. This is getting quite awkward.
That's all right. We enjoy the company. So let's move on away from Nikon now.
Anyone wants a dog?
Adoption. And so now move on to Fujifilm. I know we kind of discussed it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of rumors about the SH series and also the GFX camera. The X100 is continuing to be to be available noticed, and so there's not going to be something that you can buy off the shelf. So I think if you're existing Fujifilm fanboys and you want to get a Fujifilm camera, I think one of the most frustrating thing is that that availability thing.
Yeah,
it just simply can't get a camera. And I mean, like I said, even the XM5 in the UK at the moment has a waiting list, so it's not easy thing to get hold of any Fujifilm camera. Yes, you can get hold of the older models like XT5 and you know, or some of the other cameras that's available in the market. But anything new, anything that released in the last, I don't know, 12 months is going to be hard to come by. It's going to be really, really difficult to get hold of a new one. I don't know whether they're going to improve the situations and by finally catching up or expanding the manufacturing facilities to satisfy the demand. If not, and that could actually backfire on them, because people might simply lose interest or lose patience and move on to other things, because we're constantly having new cameras coming out.
I know, and what I'd ask Fujifilm, they wouldn't like me saying, is that could we go back to the 26 megapixel sensor, please? Because I don't like that 40 megapixel sensor very much. So can we go back? Would you mind? Would you mind awfully?
You know what, Rod? You know, like one of the reasons I actually bought the XM5 is because of your comment about the 40 megapixel sensor. It really did. Well, it really did. Because, you know, like I could have pre-ordered the XT. Well, I could have bought the XT5. I could have bought you know, other cameras with the latest 40 megapixel sensor, but I didn't. Because I just went back to 26, and the XM5 is perfect. It's 26, got face detection AF. It just, you know, the right resolution for me. And as you said, you know, most of the Fujifilm lenses are tailored for the 26 megapixels and not so much for the... They're
fine on 26 megapixels, yes.
Yeah, and,
they just
and so
40,
I just given up on the 40.
I also think there's something going on with that 40 megapixel sensor that's exaggerating defects. It's beyond its sheer resolution, but I don't know enough about it to say. But we'll see what Fujifilm brings. I hope they go back to their roots a little bit, and the camera designs that kind of made their fortune.
Yep.
We'll see.
And
we'll see.
I see Rob Mills say that he would take your dog.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a call.
Send in the address.
I'll put her in a jiffy bag. Send her over.
Chuck has an interesting comment here. Has there ever been a flagship APS-C camera?
Somebody hold my coat. Because there used to be, when camera makers supported APS-C properly. Nikon D500, that was a camera and a half at a decent price. Canon EOS 7D Mark II. That was a proper flagship APS-C camera. Have I run out straight away? Who else can we think of? Pentax.
No. Fuji's APS-Cs are flagship cameras. The XT5,
of course,
the XT series are flagship cameras.
XT5 or XH2 and XH2S.
Yeah,
they're flagship APS-C cameras. Yeah,
they're all selling for 2K.
But I think perhaps the issue is that there aren't any more. I mean, some might say that the EOS, the R7, is a flagship APS-C camera, but there isn't a flagship APS-C lens range to go with it, which is what you need for APS-C to be taken seriously. Fujifilm does it. Canon and Nikon, not really.
I guess
back in the day when they made DSLRs, they made professional lenses for their APS-C cameras. Not now.
So I guess the quick answer is that I think in today's market, Fujifilm is the only manufacturer that makes flagship APS-C cameras with the system to go with it.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Sony might say we do, but I think the lens range on the cameras are aimed more at hybrid video, not so much high-end photography.
Andrew saying
so that's
S2
debatable.
Pro.
Yeah, S2 Pro is APS-C. S3 Pro, S5 Pro. Yeah.
Vic Roman saying no OM1X or Pen F. What are you talking about? I don't know. Right. Okay. So that is Fuji, and we talked about Canon. No, not having talked about Canon and Sony yet. I mean, these two big boys. And what do you foresee in 2025? Because they both already like released their flagship cameras respectively last year.
Road maps and subdividing sectors. That's where they're heading, I think.
More rebadging.
Canon EOS R6 Mark III with a bit more processing power. And there might be an EOS RP Mark II.
Right.
Somehow slotting in underneath the EOS R8. Or maybe there'd be an EOS R8 Mark II. Who knows?
Who knows?
I think we might get some of that from Canon. From Sony, I think I haven't got the faintest idea, because every time I think there's nowhere else for Sony to go, it slices a market into smaller pieces and launches cameras for those. So I've no idea where Sony can go. I don't know of any new sensors in the pipeline, and it seems to me that Sony's already done everything possible in the sectors it's in. So I don't know.
They cover everything, right? Sony. They cover the vlogging markets, the TikTokers separately. They cover the traditional filmmaking sectors. They cover photography. They cover, and like you said, they all sub-dissected the little sectors there. One camera for landscape, one camera for product, one camera for portrait.
It's hard to know where they can go. I don't know.
Yep, that's Sony.
Maybe, yeah.
That's
we
Sony
might
for
see
you.
more ZV cameras. I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine where they can go now. But I'm sure they'll surprise us.
Actually, there's one more rumor that I haven't mentioned. I forgot about it. Actually, is that I think 3-4 weeks ago I read an article on rumor sites that Canon is patenting a video camera more specifically, that looks an awful lot like a DJI Pocket 3.
Oh,
right. So that's interesting.
Well.
And then because we all know that Canon, they had some kind of vlogging cameras existing at the moment, but they're just terrible, and they're not good at all. No stabilizations, there's nothing like that. But they do have the resources and the technologies behind to make something like that. But they're never in the gimbal business. How good the gimbal is, I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. They'll probably have to buy the gimbal off DJI
and put their own sensors or lens on it. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to see if that comes true. And because we all know that the Pocket 3 really selling like hotcakes, and every single person that I know who just, even occasional video shooters would want to get a Pocket 3 to film something when they're on holidays, and because the quality coming out from the Pocket 3 is way better than your smartphone. And it's properly
2 is good.
Yeah, and it's properly stabilized. You don't have the shaky thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just walking around with that little stick, so it's quite a handy thing to have.
I think the thing about it is, as with all gimbals, you can have it. What's the phrase for it? Tilt lock.
Yep.
And so that you don't have to keep it straight. It keeps itself straight.
Yep.
So that with a phone, you've still got to work at keeping the phone level, but with a gimbal, it levels itself. What is this dog doing?
Right.
Jimmy, I might have to go in a minute and feed this dog before it eats all my cables.
No
under
problem.
The desk.
Right,
It's been chewing on the mains cables.
Just quickly, last two comments from this side to a screen. The last two comments interesting. First of all, Ricoh Ricoh GXR and Pentax new film cameras. Well, they already launched the Pentax 17, right? The half-frame film camera last year. Whether they're gonna continue that trend to launch another camera, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a far-fetched, right? In the
it is, but then it's an interesting move because they did something totally off the wall, unlike everybody else. So could happen, but a K1000 relaunched could be nice because that's a good camera. But all the original ones, they all use cloth shutters, and they just don't live very long. You know, they deteriorate with age.
Yeah.
So I think if you have an original K1000, it may not work very well. A few might, but that'd be nice to see.
And a new GR, I think everybody would like to see a new GR because the GR has been around for a really, really long time.
But what should it do? What should it do? That's the thing.
Just better AF, and better.
It's not bad,
it's just a faster camera in general.
Yeah,
just update the internal guts a little bit, maybe. And I don't know. I think, like you said, it's already a camera that holds its own. Really, there's nothing close to it.
It doesn't do a lot, but what it does is it's been honed pretty much perfectly. So there's very little room for improvement with that design of camera. I don't know.
Yep.
I wish it didn't have that kind of electrically powered lens, and it's a more manual lens. But you know,
of course,
that's just minor.
And so that's Ricoh. And finally, I think that we're going to answer this, and we're going to call it a day today. Do you think the camcorder market is going to last or die?
It's coming back. It's
coming back. Just like the point and shoot camera.
Some camcorders, yeah.
Just like the point and shoot.
It's like a whole bunch of people have realised, wait a minute, I just want an all-in-one thing with a built-in lens with a big zoom range, and that's all I want. I don't want to worry about changing lenses, or I don't want to pay a lot of money. What happened to the old camcorder? So I think they're coming back.
Ah. That's interesting, but again, this could be just a temporary trend that we're seeing. Just like anything else that we see in the market, there is always like a up and down thing, right? Like a whole coming back. After 10 years or every 10 years, is going to come back.
And then everyone realizes how rubbish they were, and they pack it in.
Oh, the Pocket 3 is still better than a camcorder.
Oh yeah. No, I'm thinking of camcorders like super zooms. You get this massive zoom range, but it's just not very good.
No.
But a lot of people are quite happy. A lot of people aren't that critical in terms of image quality, and they think it's fine. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Only the nerds are more care about the image quality, to be honest.
I know.
Right. Okay. Well, so we call it a day. I think your dog is really hungry now. Before you choose everything off, and then we shall call it. So, once again, thank you very much for joining us for a general chat today. It's nothing really specific, and so hopefully in the next couple of months we're going to go back into our normal routine. When I say couple of months, only because next week we're going to have another live stream, but after that I'm going to take a break because I'm heading to Japan, as many of you already know, and so I'm going to be there for just about a week, photographing around Tokyo and the surrounding areas. It's going to be interesting for me, and if any of you are listening is from Japan, please do let me know, or DM me or comment that you would like to meet. I'm very happy to meet you and can show me places where I want to photograph as well. That would be really cool. So that's it. And if you want to talk about anything else and have any suggestion, please remember to put in the comment section below. We can certainly look up to it. And of course, when the new product comes, we're going to discuss it, and that will be another exciting thing to talk about. And I'm pretty sure many of you will be looking forward to that. So thank you very much, and go and feed your dog now, Rod.
Yeah, that's my tip for 2025. Don't have a dog in your live streams.
Maybe we should ask. Maybe we should train your dog to give us a thumbs up or thumb down when we talk about products.
Yes. I'll try.
Yes.
I'll try. There's some basics to attend to first. Right.
Yeah.
Say goodbye, Gracie. Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Say bye. Bye. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys all very soon. Bye for now.
All right.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye. You have been nothing but a pest.